The sun was sinking low behind the steel siding of the garage, casting long golden streaks across the pavement. The chrome on the blood-red motorcycle glinted like a blade under the dying light. Kneeling beside it was a man, rugged, built like a mountain, with a long gray beard and arms inked with symbols of pain, pride, and rebellion. His name was Rowden Cliffray, and he hadn't knelt for anything in over 30 years. Across from him, a German shepherd sat stiff, shoulders tense, lips curled just enough to show teeth. His name was Rook, and his growl wasn't just a threat. It was a warning laced with memory. The space between them buzzed with something unspoken. Not fear, not trust, something deeper, something broken. Rowden didn't flinch. His hand hovered, open and slow, palm down. "Easy, boy," he murmured, voice gravel-worn and hollow. "I ain't here to take nothing. I'm here to understand." He glanced at the bike, once ridden by Elias Thornwick, Rowden's only son. A man he barely knew. A man he hadn't seen in over a decade. Until the call came last month. Single vehicle accident, they said. No witnesses. Just Elias and the dog. Rook had survived. Now he wouldn't let anyone touch the motorcycle. Not even Thatcher Winfell, the local mechanic who'd been a second father to Elias. Not until today. Behind them, the shop door creaked open. Brennan Coldridge, silent and steady, stepped out with a cautious look. "He hasn't let anyone near that bike since the crash," Brennan said quietly. "But today, he didn't stop you." Rowden kept his eyes locked on Rook. "Because he knows I ain't just anyone." The dog sniffed, growled once more, softer this time, then stood. His tail didn't wag. He simply turned and walked slowly around the motorcycle, stopping behind it. Then he barked, sharp once, and pawed at a worn tarp draped over a crate. "What is it?" Brennan asked. Rowden stood, joints aching. He followed the dog, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. Rook stepped back as Rowden reached for the tarp, his fingers trembling. He pulled it back, and there, tucked beneath oil-stained rags and dust, was something Elias had hidden. Something Rowden wasn't supposed to find. A journal. He picked it up, and on the first page, scribbled in bold, angry ink, were the words, "If you're reading this, it means I never got to tell you the truth." Rowden's knees nearly buckled. Rook sat down beside him, silent now, watching. The sun vanished behind the horizon. Everything was about to change. Rowden Cliffray sat alone on the concrete, the worn leather journal resting heavy in his hands. The corners were frayed, edges curled from years of use, but the ink on the first page was fresh enough to sting. Rook sat beside him, ears perked, tail still. It was as if the dog was waiting for him to turn the page, or maybe daring him not to. Rowden hesitated. This wasn't just Elias's handwriting. It was his voice trapped in paper, and the first time he'd heard that voice in 10 long years. The second page was dated just 2 weeks before the crash. The words were raw, almost scribbled. "Thatcher says I shouldn't go digging, but I can't let it rest. I know something wasn't right that night. The sound of the engine, the headlights, the way Rook barked. It wasn't just the road. Someone was out there." Rowden exhaled slowly, the air leaving his lungs like it had carried a weight he hadn't noticed until now. Elias hadn't just died in an accident. He'd suspected something. That journal wasn't just a diary. It was a breadcrumb trail, a final investigation, and now it was in Rowden's hands. Footsteps approached. Brennan Coldridge stood nearby, arms crossed, watching with concern. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. Rowden didn't answer right away. He finally looked up. "You ever see this before?" Brennan shook his head. He was secretive toward the end. Only person he opened up to was Thatcher. And Rook. Rook let out a soft whine, as if he recognized the name. Rowden looked over at the dog. "He saw it, didn't he?" he asked. "Whatever happened out there, he remembers it." Brennan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, and he's been trying to tell us ever since." Rowden turned his eyes back to the pages. The next entry spoke of missing parts, tools gone from the garage, someone watching from the tree line at night. It was all written in scattered, hurried bursts, like Elias had been afraid, or running out of time. Rowden's throat tightened. The regret was loud now, deafening. He'd missed everything. Missed being a father. Missed the signs. And now all that was left was a dog that wouldn't speak, and a journal that wouldn't stop screaming. "I need to find Thatcher," Rowden said quietly. Rook stood instantly, tail stiff, ears alert. "Ready." Brennan raised an eyebrow. "You think he knows something?" Rowden didn't blink. "I think he's the only one still alive who does." Thatcher Winfell hadn't aged much in Rowden Cliffray's memory. But when Rowden stepped into the back room of the old auto shop, he found a man changed by time, and maybe guilt. Thatcher stood hunched over a rusted carburetor, grease on his hands, eyes duller than they used to be. His frame was wiry now, thinner than Rowden remembered, but there was still weight in the way he moved, the kind that came from carrying secrets too long. Thatcher didn't turn around. "I heard you were in town," he said, voice hoarse. "Figured it wouldn't take long." Rowden kept his boots heavy on the concrete, making his presence known. "He left a journal, Thatcher. Said you told him to stop digging." Thatcher wiped his hands slowly on a rag, still facing away. "That boy never did listen, just like his old man." The words hit harder than Rowden expected, but he didn't react. What was he digging into? Finally, Thatcher turned. His eyes met Rowden's with the weight of something long buried. "Elias thought someone was messing with his bike," he said. "Said it didn't feel right." Said Rook barked at the shadows. But there was never proof. Just gut feelings and sleepless nights. Rowden stepped closer, pulling the journal from his jacket. "You knew something was off. Why didn't you tell anyone?" Thatcher's jaw clenched. "Because he asked me not to. Said if anything happened, this book would explain it. Told me to leave it hidden. He didn't trust the sheriff. Didn't trust anyone." Rowden flipped to the next page. A sketch of tire treads, notes about someone watching from the edge of the woods near the garage, and a name circled in heavy ink. Coldridge. Brennan. Rowden felt a chill cut through the sweat on his back. "Why's his name in here?" he asked, holding the journal up. Thatcher stared at the page. He looked tired, resigned. "That's not something I can answer," he said. "But I can tell you this, Elias was afraid, and Brennan was the last person to see him alive. Besides Rook." Outside, a distant bark echoed through the air. Rook was waiting, alert again, watching something Rowden couldn't yet see. Thatcher took a step back. "Whatever you're chasing, Rowden, be careful. The truth doesn't always want to be found." Rowden turned without a word, the journal tight in his hand. The dog was already heading toward the woods behind the shop. Nose down, tail stiff, like he'd caught a scent buried under weeks of silence. And Rowden followed, knowing deep down, Rook was about to show him something he wasn't ready to see. The woods behind Thatcher Winfell's shop weren't deep, but they were dense, thick with pine and silence. The ground was soft from old rain, and the air smelled of damp earth and rusted memories. Rook moved ahead with purpose, his body low, tail stiff, nose skimming the soil. Rowden Cliffray followed a few paces behind, the journal tucked under one arm, his boots crunching dry twigs with each cautious step. It had been years since he'd walked through a forest like this. The last time was with Elias, a camping trip in Kentucky before everything fell apart. Back then, Elias was just 8, full of questions, asking his father why the trees creaked at night. Rowden never answered him. He didn't know how to answer anything back then. Now he'd give anything to go back to that moment and try. Rook stopped suddenly, his body locked in place, ears forward, hackles raised. He let out a low growl, not of fear, but of recognition. Something was here, something remembered. Ahead, barely visible beneath a blanket of pine needles and moss, was a small clearing. In its center, a burned patch of earth, blackened, misshapen, like a scar. Pieces of charred metal poked out from the soil, and something else. A leather glove, half buried, fingertips melted. Rowden crouched, heart hammering. He reached out slowly and brushed away the debris. The glove was his son's, the initials ET stitched on the cuff. Elias Thornwick had been here. Maybe this was where it ended, or where it really began. Rook sat beside him now, quiet, as if paying his respects. Rowden stared at the burned ground, trying to make sense of it. "Why would he come out here alone?" he whispered. A voice startled him from behind. He wasn't alone. Rowden turned sharply. Brennan Coldridge stood just beyond the tree line, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes unreadable. He looked calm, too calm. "How long have you been standing there?" Rowden asked, voice tight. "Long enough," Brennan replied. "Thatcher told you, didn't he? About the journal. About me." Rowden rose to his feet slowly. "Why is your name in it?" Brennan took a step closer. "Because Elias trusted me once. Before he found something out here. Something he shouldn't have." The wind shifted. Rook growled again, deeper this time. Rowden's hand tightened around the journal. And in that moment, with Brennan's stare locked on his, he knew. Whatever Elias had uncovered in these woods, it hadn't died with him. Rowden Cliffray didn't flinch. He stood firm, feet rooted in scorched soil, with Rook growling low at his side. Brennan Coldridge remained just a few steps away, still half-shadowed by the trees. The silence between them was heavy, thick with the weight of what hadn't been said for weeks, maybe years. "What did he find out here?" Rowden asked finally, voice steady. Brennan's jaw tightened. He was chasing stories, conspiracies, thought someone had sabotaged his bike, kept coming back to this clearing, said he saw lights, heard voices. "You're avoiding the question," Rowden said, stepping forward. "His journal says you were the last one to see him alive." "I was," Brennan admitted. "He called me that night, said he was scared, said Rook had chased someone off into the woods. I told him to wait for me, but by the time I got there, the fire had already started." Rowden's eyes narrowed. "What fire?" Brennan pointed to the charred ground beneath their feet. "Right here. Something was burning. I never saw what it was. Elias was gone. I found Rook circling the flames, howling. The bike was missing. And a week later, they said it was an accident on the highway." He paused. "But I never believed that." Rook let out a sharp bark, startling them both. His head jerked to the side, toward a nearby tree where something metallic glinted in the fading light. Rowden approached carefully and knelt beside it. Half buried beneath the roots was a small metal container, scorched but intact. He pried it open. Inside, a USB drive and a crumpled photo. The picture was old, creased at the edges, Elias, Thatcher, and Brennan standing in front of a bike. But it wasn't Elias's Harley. It was a different one, sleeker, unfamiliar, with strange symbols on the gas tank. Rowden's stomach turned. "This isn't his bike," he said. Brennan looked at the photo and went pale. "No, it's not. That's the one he found, deep in the woods. Said it was stripped, abandoned. Didn't match any registered VIN numbers. He thought it was connected to a string of thefts across the county. Or worse," Rowden muttered. He pocketed the drive. "I need to see what's on this." Brennan hesitated. "You sure you're ready for that?" Rowden met his eyes, unwavering. "I buried my son without knowing who he really was. I'm not doing that again." Behind them, Rook growled, but this time it wasn't at Brennan. It was at someone else, watching from deeper in the woods. Rowden Cliffray froze. Rook's growl deepened into a low snarl. His body coiled tight like a spring. In the fading light of the woods, Rowden could barely make out a shadow between the trees, tall, still, watching. Whoever it was didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, half hidden behind a pine trunk, as if they belonged to the forest itself. Brennan Coldridge stepped forward, squinting into the trees. "You see that?" "I see it," Rowden murmured. His hand instinctively moved toward the switchblade clipped to his belt, a habit from older, harder days. "Don't move," but Rook did. He lunged forward, barking furiously as he ran toward the figure. The shadow bolted, crashing through the underbrush. Without hesitation, Rowden chased after them, branches whipping his arms, journal bouncing under his jacket. Brennan followed close behind, breathing hard, boots pounding against the damp earth. The chase didn't last long. The figure had known the woods too well, vanishing through a narrow ridge. When Rowden reached the edge, he found nothing but the sound of leaves settling and Rook circling a patch of disturbed soil, confused and pacing. Brennan caught up, panting. "They knew we were out here." "Yeah," Rowden said, scanning the tree line. "And they wanted us to know they knew." He knelt where Rook was sniffing. Something glinted beneath the dirt. A piece of torn fabric. Rowden pulled it free. It was part of a sleeve, military-grade material. His fingers recognized the texture instantly. This wasn't just someone wandering the woods. This was someone trained to vanish. Back at the garage, Rowden sat at the workbench, the USB drive trembling between his fingers. The laptop Brennan had loaned him was old, slow, but functional. He plugged it in and waited. A folder opened. Inside were 3 video files, each dated a week before Elias's death. The first one was blurry security camera footage from a nearby road. A shadowy figure messing with a bike parked under a tree. Not Elias's bike, but the same one from the photo. The second showed Elias speaking to the camera, his voice low, scared. "If I disappear, it's not because I crashed. Someone's following me. They don't want me talking." Rowden swallowed hard. He opened the third file. It was the night Elias died. Dashcam footage from his own bike. The screen shook as headlights approached. Fast. Too fast. Another vehicle. Then a swerve. A shadow in the road. The image froze on a single frame, a license plate partially visible. It wasn't Elias who lost control. Someone had run him off the road. Rowden Cliffray leaned back in the chair, eyes locked on the frozen dashcam footage. The screen flickered slightly, but the details were unmistakable. A silver truck, late model, barreling toward Elias's bike, the partial license plate illuminated by the headlamp's flare. His heart pounded with a slow, rising fury. Someone had chased his son down. This wasn't recklessness. It was deliberate. Brennan Coldridge stood behind him, silent, watching the same image. "That's not just some stranger," he muttered. "That plate, I've seen that truck." "Where?" Rowden asked, his voice sharp. Brennan hesitated. "At the old quarry. It's been parked out there for months now. Belongs to a man named Lester Calder. Retired military. Keeps to himself. Not from around here." The name didn't mean anything to Rowden, but the location did. The quarry had been shut down for years. Remote, forgotten, easy to hide in. Rook, who had been lying silently beneath the bench, suddenly rose to his feet, ears twitching. He sniffed the air, then gave a single bark and walked to the garage door. Rowden followed him out into the dusk without a word. The air was cooler now, dry leaves skittering across the lot. Rook led him to the far corner of the property, to a rusted shed no one had opened in years. Rowden pulled the door wide. It groaned on its hinges, and inside, under a tattered tarp, lay something unexpected. Another motorcycle. Not Elias's, this one was older, heavily modified, with a dented gas tank and missing plates. But it had the same strange symbol as the one in the photo, a jagged V within a circle, etched into the steel like a brand. "What the hell is this?" Rowden muttered. Rook sniffed the bike, then circled it, whimpering once before sitting down, tail still. There was a scent he recognized. Presence. Rowden leaned in and checked under the seat. Tucked beneath the leather cushion was another flash drive. Back inside, he plugged it in. This one had only one file, confidential Thornwick. The screen lit up with a document, military formatting, full of redacted lines and abbreviations. At the top, a phrase that stopped Rowden cold. "Subject has been monitored due to contact with ex-personnel." He stared at the screen, jaw clenched. His son had been watched, tracked, maybe even set up, and someone in uniform had made sure it all looked like a mistake. Rowden Cliffray stared at the classified document on the screen. His breath caught somewhere between disbelief and rage. The phrase "subject has been monitored due to contact with ex-personnel" echoed in his head. It wasn't just paranoia, Elias had been targeted. But for what? And by whom? Rowden scrolled through the redacted pages, but most of the details were blacked out. Except one. A name, Thatcher Winfell. The moment he saw it, something shifted. His memories of Thatcher came flooding back. Always loyal, always present, but always watching. Elias had trusted him. Rowden had too. But what if Thatcher had ties to whatever Elias uncovered? What if he wasn't just a mechanic, but a thread in a larger web? Rook stood at the door, restless again. His instincts were sharper than any man's. Rowden rose, grabbed the flash drive, and tucked it in his jacket. "We're going back to Thatcher," he said. The drive across town was quiet, tense. Brennan stayed behind. His face had gone pale when he saw the document, and he muttered something about needing to check on a few things. Rowden didn't press. He had a feeling he'd be circling back to Brennan soon enough. Thatcher's shop looked different this time. The lights were off. The garage door was half open. Rook stepped out of the truck before it even stopped moving, heading straight toward the side door. Rowden followed, boots crunching gravel. He knocked once. No answer. He pushed the door. It creaked open slowly. Inside, the air was still and heavy. The scent of oil and burnt rubber lingered. But there was something else beneath it. Sweat, adrenaline, fear. A toolbox was spilled across the floor. Papers scattered. And near the back bench, a cell phone lay smashed in two. "Thatcher," Rowden called out. No reply. Rook growled low and moved to the rear exit. Rowden followed him out back and stopped cold. Tire tracks, fresh, leading away from the shop, toward the service road that wrapped around to the old quarry. Whoever had been here had left in a hurry. Rowden turned back to the garage and spotted something on the wall he hadn't noticed before. A corkboard, partially covered by a tarp. He pulled it down. The board was pinned with photographs, receipts, maps, and in the center, a copy of the same military document Rowden had just found. Thatcher had known everything, and now he was gone. Rowden Cliffray's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel as he tore down the back road, the quarry drawing closer with every mile. Rook sat alert in the passenger seat, ears forward, eyes locked on the road ahead. Neither of them needed to speak. They both felt it. This wasn't just about finding Thatcher. This was about finishing what Elias had started, and maybe finally getting justice for a son who had died chasing the truth. The sun had dropped low, casting the world in an amber glow. Shadows stretched long across the gravel road as they passed the old railroad tracks and a collapsed fence that hadn't been repaired in years. Rowden had always hated this place. Too quiet, too isolated. Now it felt like the only place where answers still lived. The quarry came into view, a wide basin of broken stone and forgotten machinery. At the far end, near a row of abandoned shipping containers, sat the silver truck from the dashcam footage. Rowden stopped the engine, his heart beat in his ears. It was the same vehicle. He could see the dented fender and the cracked tail light. Someone was here, or had just been. He stepped out slowly, motioning for Rook to stay low. The dog obeyed, moving with the quiet precision of a soldier. Together they approached the truck. The engine was warm, recently used. Rowden peeked through the driver's window. The keys were gone, but the glove box hung open. Inside, maps, a flashlight, and several printed photos of Elias. Surveillance shots. Someone had been watching him for months. Then, from the shadows behind the containers, a voice rang out. "Put the journal on the ground, Rowden." He turned sharply. A man stepped forward, face hard, jaw square, older but unmistakable. Thatcher Winfell. Rowden's chest tightened. "You were his friend," he said. "He trusted you." "I was trying to protect him," Thatcher replied. His voice was low, almost pained. "He got too close to something he didn't understand." "You were military intelligence," Rowden said, the pieces falling together. "You used him to get to whatever this operation was. He found the bike, the drive, the proof, and you silenced him." "No," Thatcher said sharply. I wasn't the one who killed him, but I didn't stop it either. Rowden reached into his jacket, pulling out the journal. Not to hand it over, but to open it one last time. I'm not walking away without the truth, he said. Behind them, Rook growled deep. His eyes locked on another figure emerging from the quarry shadows. They weren't alone. Rowden Cliffray didn't move. The journal stayed clutched in his hand, heart pounding beneath his leather jacket. Rook's growl deepened as the second figure stepped fully into the open. Lester Calder, the man Brennan had warned him about. Older, colder, and carrying something darker in his eyes than even Rowden had known in his worst days. Military stance. Clean grip on the pistol at his side. I told you this would come back to us, Calder said to Thatcher. You should have burned everything. Thatcher didn't look at him. His eyes were on Rowden, regret swimming just beneath the surface. I tried to keep it quiet, but Elias wouldn't stop digging. He died because of you, Rowden said, voice sharp. You fed him just enough truth to keep him chasing it. And when he got too close, he died because he was brave. Thatcher interrupted, his voice cracking. Braver than any of us. Calder raised the pistol slowly. None of this leaves here. That journal, the dog, you. It all ends now. But before he could aim, Rook lunged. The dog launched himself forward with a speed and force that caught everyone off guard. Calder stumbled, fired, the shot went wide, and Rook slammed into him, sending both crashing to the ground. The gun skidded across the gravel. Rowden didn't hesitate. He dove, grabbed the weapon, and stood, aiming it squarely at Calder, who lay gasping beneath Rook's teeth. Call him off, Thatcher shouted. Rowden did, with one firm word. Rook backed off, teeth bared, chest heaving. Rowden stepped closer to Calder, the pistol steady in his hands. You spent years hiding the truth, he said. Elias paid the price. Not today. Calder didn't respond. Thatcher moved in, slowly, hands up. We'll handle this the right way now. No more silence. Later, back at the garage, Rowden stood alone in the office. The journal lay open on the desk beside the flash drives, photos, and documents. Everything now in the sheriff's hands. Calder had been taken into custody. Charges were coming, and Elias's name would be cleared. He looked down at the last page Elias had written. If you're reading this, Dad, I hope it means you came back. Rowden swallowed hard. His fingers trembled as he closed the cover. I did, son, he whispered. I came back. Outside, the wind picked up. Rook lay peacefully by the door, head resting on his paws, eyes watching the world with quiet knowing. And for the first time in years, Rowden Cliffray finally felt the weight begin to lift.